All right, let's bring in our guests. We have Mr. Hanniel Jafaru, an IT and cybersecurity expert. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Jafaru.
Thank you for having me.
I don't know what your thoughts will be concerning this laudable initiative, talking about the Nigeria Data Initiative, the committee that was inaugurated for the implementation. Now, we live in a digital era where data is very vital, not just for education, but for every aspect, but narrowing it down to education. What kind of, impact will this have on the system?
Well, it's going to have enormous impact. Looking at it from the perspective that it is more of like an integration of all the data from different sectors of education, looking at it from the primary schools down to the secondary schools and the higher institutions. It integrates all their data and make it easier for students to be tracked at every point in time. So it's a laudable initiative, and it's an initiative I believe it would be of enormous benefit to the citizens and also to the government. It's like it's a all-round progressive initiative, and it's something I applaud the ministry for taking the initiative of setting up the committee that would ensure that this is implemented.
Okay, if we want to look at how this will be achieved, it will of course require the buy-in of every key player in the sector. This is why I'm saying this, because you need to collate this data before you can harmonize it and have a unified data bank. So as an IT and cybersecurity expert, what can the ministry leverage on to ensure that every aspect, because this data bank will be collated or unified in different categories. So how can they leverage to achieve a seamless process?
Okay, so the good thing about the committee that was instituted is that it's a collation of all the major agencies that deals with some of these data, looking at JAM, for example, NECO, NUC, and the like. So the head of these agencies or representative from these agencies were part of the committee. That would make it easier for them to be able to take feedbacks to their agencies and make sure that their agencies align with the discussions of the committee. And during the meeting, the committee meeting, they will be able to present their own standpoint, looking at it from the committees, from their agency's perspective, and how this data can be harmonized. My major concern actually is, even though this committee tends to be comprehensive, I am just concerned on how they are going to capture data from the informal sector of the informal education sectors, like the Almajiri schools and all those vocational institutions that are not directly under a particular association or a particular agency, or are not being managed by the government. So they will need to think out of the box on how best to be able to capture those in the informal sector, because while this initiative is an applaudable initiative, is because of the ability to track a student from primary down to when they even drop out, if that possibility exists. So if someone gets to school now, gets done with his primary school, and the person probably drops out and is unable to further his education in the secondary school, the data bank should be able to capture that possibility. But how about a situation where the person now furthers in an informal sector? So that's the reason why the committee will need to think and see how best to include the informal sector in their data. And once the necessary roadmap and design and schematics have been put in place, implementing it shouldn't be an issue, because at that point it would be software developers and IT consultants that would now do the implementations.
Okay, it's glad you mentioned the non-formal sector, because part of the categories actually that will be looked into to collect data will be parents and guardians. That's also part of it. Even schools, the state of schools, and also funding priorities. Now, these are aspects that they're not necessarily, like you said, under an agency that has already collated its data. So would that pose a challenge?
No, I don't think it will, because the schools has a relationship with the parents. So because the schools have a relationship with the parents, the schools can easily capture that data, while they would now transmit that data to the data bank. So it won't be an issue. My major concern is those schools that we don't even know exist. Those schools in the rural area, those schools that are not in the formal sector, as generally we generally know that there is the primary school, there is the secondary school, and there is those are the formal sector, the higher institution. How about the Almajiri schools that are not in the formal sector? They don't have a place in the Nigerian education system as a formal means of education. So how would they want to capture it? Because someone can just wake up today and set up a school for that purpose, and it's not registered, it's not recognized by the government. Even if it is registered, it's only registered because it needs to carry out business, but it does not have that formality and the grip of the government to regulate it. So I think the government needs to think of how best they can approach that, especially when it has to do with those kind of informal sector academics.
You know, quite fascinating also, another aspect is that while trying to build a robust data bank, it is expected to create a 360-degree view of the education system in Nigeria. If you want to paint a picture looking at the challenges in a nation like Nigeria that is still grappling, you know, to build all networks to expand broadband, you know, broadband penetration, how do you think this will be seamless?
Okay, so it goes beyond just okay, now let me even start from the fact that one of the concerns about the fact that we are bringing technology into this process is that this data is going to be resident in one area, and that makes it a choice location for attackers. So it's quite important that we take note of that. So hackers can begin to that data bank can become a target for attackers, because it's going to hold the data of practically over 60 to 80% of Nigeria. In fact, I can use the word 100% of Nigeria. I can be specific to be 100% of Nigeria, because we are expecting that many Nigerians will pass through the education system. And as long as you pass through the education system, your data would be captured. And once your data is captured, it's going to be put in a digital format, and it's going to be saved in someone's server, probably in the cloud. So there's going to be need for the committee to look at how to secure the data and ensure it doesn't become a consign for those that will be dropping their data, knowing fully well that there are regulations that binds data protection, that the agency, the Nigerian Data Protection Commission,
yes,
they do that. But beyond that, there is always the challenge of any agency or any institution resisting change. So that's another challenge I think that the committee will have to encounter. Agencies may resist this change because at this point in time it will require them having to go the extra mile. It may require them having to have additional hands. It may require them having to, especially private sectors, private schools that would now need to get a data operator that would help them manage the data and also ensure that that data is transmitted into the data bank. So it's going to be additional cost for them, and they may want to transfer the cost to the parents. But then beyond the security and the privacy concern and change resistance concern, it's quite important that everyone bear in mind that it's a laudable initiative, and it's just something that we all have to put our hands together and ensure that it sees the light of day.
Indeed, we're waiting to see what happens, but let's keep that, you know, as we take a break. We'll be back, Mr. Jafaru. Please stay tuned.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Jafaru, you've seen it from the states. What will be the buy-in of the subnationals, talking about state government? Earlier I asked you a question on the collation process that requires the buy-in of everyone. What role can state governments play to make this become a reality?
Okay, so before a state government would even want to consider it's even important for them to even understand how it would benefit them. So let's say, for example, the Edo State that was captured. If you have like 10,000, for example, you have like, let's say 100 or 1,000 schools, secondary schools, with over 100,000 students, and you are allocating the same resource to each of those schools. Meanwhile, each of those schools, they don't have the same capacity as long as students is concerned, the same number of students. Yeah. It's resource misappropriation or resource misallocation. So with this data, it helps them to know the exact number of data, the exact number of students in a school, and helps them to see the reasons to even erect or establish more schools within a geographical location, thereby making them to allocate resources as needed, as against them just reallocating based on numbers. This time around, they are allocating resources based on the data that they have. So the state government needs to take this initiative even more serious than even those that are championing it. And beyond that, we've seen cases of certificate forgery. This would help in address the issue of certificate forgery. Yeah. There are many people who go to school, who go to work, and they submit certificates that certificate of institution that they never attended. You can easily just approach the education data bank and request for the information of that particular student since they are claiming they went to a particular institution, and all the necessary information for that student pops up. So CVs would be validated, verified, credentials will be validated, verified, and these are information that helps the state government to even employ state government to equip the organizations within the state to employ the right skilled personnel for a particular job role.
You know, I like the aspect you went to now because actually the data bank will consolidate on, data of everyone that's for the Nigerian students now via your name. So it's going to give you real-time view of your track record of your educational background. So that aspect, of course, we'll address it. But we can't achieve these again. It requires an advanced level of technology. Now, how can partners come in, talking about the private sector, international communities, to help make this dream become a reality?
Well, I'm always an advocate of localizing technology. So if we're getting any partner, we should try as much as possible to use the local companies and local partners as against international partners, because there is data sovereignty, which is one of the concerns or advocacy of the Nigerian Data Protection Commission, that who owns a data that resides within the country. So if we begin to allow external partners or foreign partners to partner in this initiative, the possibility now lies in the fact that our data can be exported, and that would be a huge concern for us. So now, how can partners come in? I think partners can come in the area of financial support. Yeah. It would require high level of financial support for this initiative to be implemented, because we're not just talking about integrating 1, 2, 3 schools. We're talking about integrating thousands and thousands of schools. There will be need for localized trainings where schools need to now be trained on how to use the system. So we would need partners I think the committee would need partners in the area of training those that are involved. Would also need, I think the committee will also, the committee will also need partners in the area of in the area of developing the infrastructure that is needed to host this thing, where the data will be stored, who would store the data, who would protect the data. All these things are areas that would need partnership. So these are areas I think the committee can begin to advocate for partners, financial partners, technical partners that will help, that will guide them in the area of designing the schematics that will make this thing work. Security partners that will help them to secure, to ensure that the structure for the data bank is secure, because everywhere there is data is like you've gathered the food from malicious actors. That becomes their target, and especially data, especially when when an initiative is new and they've not really gone far with security, that becomes a huge concern. So that's that.
Indeed, and we don't want to hear of any breach of the data bank.
We hope so.
Of course, because at the end of the day, Nigerians just want to see an accurate, reliable, and accessible data. Thank you so much.